Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's public hearing. Before we get started, please turn off your cell phones or other electronic devices to avoid any interruptions or distractions. I'd appreciate it. If anyone's planning on presenting testimony, please sign in the sheet in the back. It's Wednesday, January the 12th. The time is 6 o'clock. The time set for this public hearing. All three commissioners are present. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, they're not.
Thank you. May I have a motion to remove unfinished business from the table?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'll go ahead and make the motion to remove the unfinished business from the table for consideration.
I'll second that.
Okay. You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we've removed the unfinished business from the table. It is application number 201600646, CURB, John Wood.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if we could maybe remind folks tonight that if you're the applicant, you have up to 12 minutes to provide testimony, and then a rebuttal of 5 minutes, and then individual testimony, if you're not the applicant, will be 3 minutes each.
Exactly, and I have a timer here too.
Official timekeeper.
So it's 12, 5, and 3.
Okay.
All right. Could you identify yourself for the record, sir?
Yeah, John Wood.
Okay. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. I'll open the public hearing.
Okay.
Public hearing's open.
John Wood, 8700 Chaparral Road, Eagle, Idaho.
Okay.
We're here tonight,
Yes,
I believe we would like to hear from staff first.
you're right. We need to have a staff report first. I'm sorry. Staff, we'll hear a staff report first. Go ahead.
Thank you, Corey.
start the clock over, please.
I didn't even start it yet.
Chairman Commissioners, Diana Sanders will be presenting. I'll be running the presentation for her, so
Okay.
just to let you know.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is a review of the original conditional use master site plan for the racetrack. One of the conditions of approval was that the board shall review the status of the go-kart track after 1 full year of operation and consider amendments or additions to the approval. This property is located within the Rural Preservation District.
Okay.
So we do have a copy of the vicinity map. Can we go to the next slide? So this is what the racetrack looks like currently. The applicant owns the property that's outlined in red, and it actually goes further to the north. Next slide. So this is the master site plan that was approved. And then they did submit a landscape plan that was approved also. So they do have their parking. You can kind of see it in these areas. And then they do have some structures along different areas of the property. And there is a residence over in this area. Next slide. These are just pictures of the property out in that area. This is where the racetrack is currently. Next slide. So there were 2 comments that we received that were in opposition to the racetrack. They had some concerns with the noise and the numbers of days that they operate. We have received 22 comments in favor of the racetrack. Most of the comments are about how good the racetrack is and the children that participate in these races and how it's made a difference in their lives. Several of the people that submitted comments do live in the area and said that noise was not a problem.
Okay.
And so you guys can look at the conditions of approval, and if you want any changes, and the applicant can explain some of the things that he's trying to do to mitigate the opposition. They actually have met with one of the neighbors to see how they can work out what the issues are. And I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. What's the number of days that the original applicant agreed to?
Number of days, the hours and days of operation are Wednesday through Sunday between 9 and 8, and Sunday, the hours from 10 to 5. During the months of April to October, they can have one sanctioned race per event per month. And then during the months of January to December, they can have scheduled non-sanctioned events, and corporate team building will be allowed.
Okay, thank you. Is there any?
Events.
Okay. All right. Is there any questions from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So Diana, or possibly Leon, the two people that are in opposition, are they signed up to testify tonight, or are we going by their submitted documents?
Chairman, Commissioner, Diana, do you happen to know, or perhaps Corey, if either of the complaining parties signed up to testify today?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we haven't had anybody sign up to testify except for Mr. Wood, who is the property owner.
And Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, there are two individuals who have signed up, but they did mark that they're in favor of the use.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess just for clarification, you can go ahead and sit down and.
Okay, you got it.
I could ask a few questions. I've been known to do that. Thanks. So just to make sure that we're taking the people who are in opposition, their opposition into account, I'm really interested in where they live in relation to the track. And it looks like the one is across the street. Is that across Chaparral or across 16? If you have a map, that'd be great.
It's across Chaparral. In the staff report, I do have a copy of where they actually live. So we had a complaint from the Hallstroms, and then also Mr. Flynn, who lives to the east of the racetrack.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Hallstroms right now. Can you point to where their house is? Is it on this
The
map?
Hallstroms is to the,
It's the other one?
Diana, you have a
Yeah.
north sign pointing to the left of the screen. Is that, I assumed east was over here, but is Chaparral?
that's where Hallstroms live, is where you have your arrow currently.
Okay.
And Mr. Flynn is to the east.
Okay, and so
Correct.
for the Hallstroms, I'm sorry, for the Hallstroms, what's the distance from their house to the actual racetrack?
I don't know from their house because I can't go to their property. I could do a mapping of it and see what kind
That's
of
okay.
distance it's set at.
I can ask Mr. Wood when he comes up. He'll know the distance between Chaparral Road and the beginning of his track, and it's about the same distance, I think, on the other side to the house. So I can figure it out that way.
Okay.
Okay.
Diana, the application on item number 32, the applicant was supposed to get annexed into the Star Fire District. Did that happen?
Mr. Chairman, yes, they did annex into the Star Fire District.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
has all the landscaping been complete that was required?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kenyon, yes, it has been.
Are you aware of any of the conditions that has not been adhered to?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Any other question of our staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and again, this might be for Diana, for Leon. Is this area now in Eagle's area of impact because of M3? Or Spring, whatever it is?
I'll defer to Diana on that one as I'm not exactly familiar. I think it is outside, but Diana, do you happen to know?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kenyon, it is outside of Eagle's area of impact.
It is, okay. And can you tell me, do you know approximately how far it is from the proposed M3 development?
I don't know exactly where the M3 development starts, but I think they are proposing, they've annexed some of the properties to the south. Let me do a quick measurement here because I do have where Eagle city limits is.
And again, the only reason I'm going down this line of questioning is I believe Chaparral Road is the designated road for ingress and egress off of Highway 16 for the homes that are going in there, and there's a fair amount of homes, correct? So that's going to be as busy as 16.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner
Yes.
Kenyon, yeah, the entry for that N3 property is actually further to the south. The primary,
So
the
they'll be
primary
going by
entry,
this
yeah.
property. Okay.
Yeah, this property is over 5,700 feet from the city limits. And to answer, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kenyon, your original question about the distance between the track and the Hallstroms, it was over 500 some feet. In fact,
Oh.
let me pull that back up.
850 feet
850 feet.
850 feet?
to the edge of the asphalt of the driveway, or the edge of the track.
Okay.
It's actually right about 1,000 at where the cars actually run.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kenyon, yeah, with the GIS map that we have access to, which is our official map, it's over 800 feet from the nearest track to the Hallstrom's property there, or to their home.
Okay, great, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Okay, any other questions, Commissioner?
Mr. Chair. Question to staff, did code enforcement do any investigations on this property?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Ryan, yes, they did do some investigation and found him in compliance.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no more questions from the commission, you're welcome to come up and give us your,
Let me just use this one real quick here, if you want to put that back up real fast.
Be there in a second.
You can pull up a chair. It looks really uncomfortable for 12 minutes.
What is, okay, so
Before you start, if you could state your name and address for the record.
John Wood, 8700 Chaparral Road, Eagle, Idaho. I live on the premises. So when we brought the track through in 2016, we had heavy opposition. I had a developer across the street who rounded up all the neighbors, paid for environmental attorneys, paid for fire marshals, everybody to block the track. They appealed it twice. Every time it was a unanimous decision for approval. The developer has now sold the property. He convinced everybody, it's in the packet that I've sent in. Property's going to devalue everything. The fires were going to start, people on drugs, the whole deal, had everybody riled up. He paid the bill for all the expert witnesses and everything. We got it done. Started on it. They called the EPA on us. They said we were digging up an Indian burial site. They flew in from Seattle. So that happened. The IRS came in and said we,
It's all right, take your time.
hope this doesn't go against my time. But, so they came in and got 30 boxes from us, said we shouldn't have put the property in a trust, and the neighbors across the street called, they came to our house. So my attorney's here. So they returned all the books after 8 months, said, never mind, handed Jed 30 boxes of stuff. We were able to go. We started building the track. We built the track 6 months before we were supposed to be finished with the track, on our 2-year allotment. We did all the what do they call it, for the remodeling of the Boise River. Even they called it the floodplain. We had to do that. That was $45,000 so we could put the track in the backside. And then, with that being said, we, the county came out, gave us a letter just to quit working on the track. The safety enforcement shut us down. They found out they were 6 months off because they had peeled it so many times. Development Services had actually misread the actual date of the beginning of the 2-year time frame. So Jed and I came down, we showed the county the papers. We had to pull all the workers off the track for 30 days. The pavers, everybody, we had to get them off. Then we brought them back. And then we've got the track finished in time. We got it signed off. We've been in business for 2 years. We've had no complaints. Sorry about this, but it's so, what we've been trying to do is, build something for everybody, long-term and have something. We're losing all our open space. Things for kids to do outside. And the main thing here is, so what I'm trying to get at is, we literally had to be escorted out here with the sheriffs when we brought it through, my son and my wife. And so when we use our house, the neighbor next door, one of them that called in the complaint, he shoots the gun every time we're on our horses. And so that's the kind of stuff that we have to do sometimes to develop. And so, so to get back to that, for what we've been through and have nobody show up here is pretty amazing. I do a lot of developments. I did the entrance to Eagle Island State Park there where the music school is. I worked with 5 different agencies, organized it, got the Ball 4 road, changed to a Ball 3 road, got the entrance done, built the Dickies, the music school, got all that done. I was up at 44 and 16. I had the property there where the new bridge went in, right there with the annexation. So when we decided to put a go-kart track in, we looked at the land, we looked at what the future roads were going to be, and where the future road, to get back to what we were talking about, was Chaparral is and the plans are in your packet, and the compass and everybody is the road from Chaparral goes to Highway 16 to 55. So at some point in time, M3, the 22,000 homes going in right now, is going down Chaparral Road out to 16, and the plans are in your, and the compass reports are, and the Washington Group's record of survey is in the report. So with that being said, sorry about that. It just sometimes, you sit and you wait. So here's the track. We live here. And tonight we were asked not to bring up the things that we were asking for. When I originally brought it through, there was so much opposition. Then I asked that after they got done putting them on, can we come back in a year and maybe make a few adjustments? Because I know once people know the track's done, I've been in the racing business my whole life, that we'll be able to make some changes, because the stuff that they were asking us to do was pretty overboard for what it was. And so that's why the 1 year is here, is because we asked for it, because we figured we could come back and ask for some things. This is the track right here. Mr. Hallstrom lives, does that work, Shane?
The laser pointed at the red dot.
Okay. Mr. Hallstrom lives up behind that hill up there. in the valley. So out there, so he lives in the hill, goes out here, and then,
I'm sorry, is that where the landscaping is on the hill?
yeah, in the landscaping, he lives down the hill. So,
That area right there.
yeah, right there.
Yeah, okay.
So, let's go back. Go back, right there. Can you play that?
Well, that's a separate file. This isn't a
Oh.
video.
It was that way before. Okay, so Mr. Halston lives there. So, you want to play that video real quick? So, so to get to what we've tried to do, so over the time, we've tried to work with all the kids, and you can see through the letters in the packet, that's just a few of them. Last time I had letters, and the people didn't live in the neighborhood, so the opposition was all mad that the people didn't live in the neighborhood. I've always told everybody, I'm gonna live here where the racetrack is. I live the closest one to the track. We make sure that it's kept up, it's quiet. You can see the track out here right now going. This is a normal day out there. Can you make that bigger, Shane, or is that it? So that's the track. There's, okay.
Is there volume with this?
Not with this is an aerial, but I have some with volume.
Okay.
So this right here is the track. You can see this is a normal, that's a big race day. There's the people on the thing. So you'll see the buildings. You want to stop it right there, Shane? So you see all the buildings, everything that we've placed, all the buildings on my property, they're strategy, I can't say it right, but it's placed. So it blocks everything. So when we've had our sound studies, we've had everything else, the number one thing they say is sight, people's sight is 90% of the noise. So one of the things is I've tried to place everything all across, all for noise barriers, everything that we do. So I see a couple holes right here. Here, here, and here. So I'm gonna go ahead and that's what I was working on, is getting some berms put there to help mitigate. And again, Mr. Holstrom lives down there in the hill, down below. So Shane, you wanna go to the rebuttal? So again, usually when people have opposition, they sign up and they do everything. They're here. Mr. Hallstrom and his wife have always, I've talked to his wife and never talked to them. After there was so much pressure and sides chose on getting the go-kart track through, I haven't really talked to any of the neighbors, and I didn't know he had a problem. He wrote a letter on the biggest race we ever had at the track on September 11th, but it still fit within all the guidelines. When he did make his complaint and he wrote the letter, there was a lot of half-truths in there. And so, again, I've never tried to call anybody out on it, but I have transponders, I have time, I can tell you when the races have started, I can tell you when, and I can tell you how much time we've been on the track. The other person that called in, Mr. Hallstrom, went over to him and asked him to call in. He called in on a Tuesday and said all kinds of things when we've never even raced on a Monday or Tuesday. My wife has taken phone calls or texts on a Monday night from one of the other neighbors early on, and said that we were racing up and down the street on a Monday night when it was raining, and they're gonna call the police. And I said, good, call the police, because we wanna know who they are too. And so at the end of the day, on your end, people come in, they have agendas, they have other things, but it's very hard, I understand, on that, because you wanna always do the right thing and about the neighbors and everything, work real hard. And the same with myself, I wanna work hard. But at the same time, currently right now, I'm redoing the Boise Cascade lumber mill in Emmett. And I have concerts out there, and I have stuff that, I've had nights when the band got sick, didn't even show up. And I get calls that we were too loud. Didn't even have anything going on. We've had lights in people's eyes, that the lights that have been there for 60 years in the parking lot, because they read that in there, is that they read it in there, and they say that one of the conditions is you can't shine light in people's eyes. So they call up and they say, hey, I got light in my eyes.
Okay, could you wrap it up?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So with all that being said, here's Mr. Hallstrom's house. He used to live in a quiet neighborhood he was quiet, he was there by himself. The owner of the property, that built those houses, the last lot sold for 1.6 million, actually cut a road. This is a road now looking down on his house. He has 16 brand-new homeowners with all the trucks and the trailers. Do you have a picture of that right there? So he used to live up there with nothing. Now, every one of those trucks come up the hill, and then down, built that whole road, and there's 16 homes going in there right now. So with that being said, some of the times when his frustration, when I did go and talk to him right away, Mr. Beck, is that he was more concerned about this has happened, his neighborhood's changed and stuff like that. The winery has doubled the amount of customers and stuff like that. So with that being said, I'll get done. I'm sorry for taking up the time there at the front.
Okay, no question. If there, would you stand for some questions?
Yes,
Okay, the whole purpose of this hearing is to determine whether you've complied fully with the development agreement.
correct.
And our staff tells us that you have, that there's no issues there, and you haven't indicated any issues. So is there any questions from the commission?
Yeah, I'm just, Mr. Chair, just curious, you mentioned that you did a sound, what did you do?
Sound study.
Yeah, sound study. And what was the results of the sound study?
The sound studies was, we were at, and I put it in the packet. I actually have, it's in the.
Can you just tell me what was?
Oh, yeah. So
the
basically it
decibels?
was 67 dBs.
dBs.
And they said, that's at 10 carts. At 20 carts, it goes like to 68 dBs. And just so to know, is just starting your car idling is 83.
Okay.
So so just to give a little background with me saying about with the Boise Cascade and owning racetracks.
That's okay, I'm just.
No, but I'm saying I keep a decibel meter.
Okay.
Shane, he's my electrician out at the mill. We always keep decibel meters. I walk around everywhere. I go to the property, I can tell you right now, the go-karts don't run over 72 go-karts with 15 out there at the property line.
And then, can you tell us what the dragsters run at Firebird when they're running?
They're probably about 120.
At 120?
Yeah.
And then
Actually-
what would be a truck, an average large truck running down Highway
About
16?
about 90, 95, yeah.
Okay, just to
Yeah.
put it in perspective for us.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. So that's where DBs, so like I just got a racetrack approved in Emmett and I built it and everything. So there, my requirement there with the county is 98 dBs at the property line. I used to own Meridian Speedway. It was 95, 100 feet away.
So you're under that.
I'm way, way under that, and I knew I would be. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
All right, any other questions? from
Yeah,
the-
I have one
Okay,
other
go ahead.
question, because as sound travels, it diminishes. And so I don't know if you've done any sound studies on how much it would diminish if it starts out at 80 decibels. After it travels 850 feet, it would have. It'd have to be down to,
yeah, I mean, it's probably down, usually just like right now, like if I grab my phone, it would be 60 in here right now. Just so, like and so one of the things is, so like when a guy takes a video, if you say, everybody be quiet, don't say anything, and you hear that air conditioning unit, it would sound like it was going, it'd be super, super loud.
okay.
And so, just like when you're outside and you say, hey, listen to those birds, and all of a sudden, you'll hear those birds chirp, but the second you're not listening for the birds, you don't hear them. And Highway 16, just so you know, one of the things that I was under the impression that I was able to ask for stuff here. I was told at 2:30 today I wasn't able to ask, because I read this as the board shall review the status of the go-kart track use after 1 full year, operations considered amendments or additions. So I was taking that was there, but I was informed today that this isn't the forum for it. And so we'll be working with staff to figure out just some minor things. Everything that I was going to ask for is only to help mitigate and to make the days go quicker. It was nothing for.
And you can ask for them in the proper format. 'cause
That's right, and I,
They'll
and I,
have to go
and-
through our planning and zoning and everything.
yeah, we'll go
It'll
through the
take
proper,
it will
yeah.
take a little while, yeah.
Right, so with that being said, the noise is, and everybody has to, you want to go back to the overall of it? So the biggest thing is I just want everybody to understand is I live on the property, and I'm right there every day to keep an eye on the property. And if there's an issue, I live right there before Mr. Hallstrom. Go back there, Shane. And so I lived there right before Mr. Hallstrom. So when he talks about noise, I can be in the house and I can't hear the carts out there. It's just the way it is. And so I can't talk about him or what he hears. I can just know what I know.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So are your carts as quiet as they can be? Is there any other technology or muffling you can put on them, or are they as quiet as they go?
Well, they're quiet now. I do believe that there is outside mufflers that could probably restrict it down further. But with these carts, there's a class with them. And one of the slides that I was going to bring up here was we're probably about 3 to 5 years out, probably closer to 3 of having all electric go-karts. We do have some people that come out with electric go-karts. They're made in Italy, and they have enough power to go running out there right now. And but they're $25,000 for those carts. And as the technology gets, we want to be the first ones in. So they have them like this with the, see the big right there. And so our goal, and again, right here is the property is as big as Ann Morrison Park. So we're not, to get in perspective, that's why I did the overlay. Where I put the track is I own enough land as where the Ann Morrison Park or Boise State. But the long of the short of it is the second it comes through, we want to be right there on the forefront. And
Then let me ask you, any of the new requests that you plan on bringing, do they have anything to do with noise, or decoration?
they were, you want to go to the very
Well,
the
Mr.
slides
Chair,
real quick?
I'd like to address that, so we don't have to take up a lot more time here. One of them was to add 50 cc's as part of what were allowed, because those are the smallest ones, and they weren't written, their language wasn't written properly.
It was a
in the first
typo.
place. It was a typo.
It was a
So
typo
we
in the
could
original
add-
thing.
Modify that to include
Yeah.
50 cc's tonight, and I think we'd be fine with that.
Actually, what it says is just to make it real simple, is what I put in, replaces item number 28. Use of racetrack racers to be limited to go-karts with engine sizes, racetrack for racers is limited to race go-karts with engine size no more than 206, except for electric-powered race go-karts. And so the idea there was, it just cleans it up. We're not going any above 206 cc for racing go-karts.
What I read was just, it included going down. The reason for the change is that there are some small child go-karts to be used that are only 50 cc's in engine size.
Right, and that's the size they use, and the verbiage should have said max, but during all that confusion and everything, when we had brought these through, it was just something that got overlooked, and it cleans it up really easy, and I'm not asking for anything, I'm just asking to clean it. And so what happens is, and
Mr.
here's,
Chair,
Yes.
So
Okay.
we don't have a whole lot of time, so.
Okay. Can I give you a copy of this?
Yeah, you can give us a copy.
Okay,
of that.
I got everybody a copy here.
My other question on noise, to answer Commissioner Davidson's question, is you were requesting that you could use a microphone, and that is for safety purposes, I understand? To make sure that people can socially distance, and then you can give them safety instructions?
Yeah, and that was the.
That might be at a microphone, Mr. Wood, so we can pick up your
Oh,
testimony.
okay. Here you go, sorry about that.
Sure. And this will be added as an exhibit.
It makes it really easy.
Okay.
And then the other thing is, so Shane, can you go to the microphone thing? So, before you go, so right here that's where I live at. Mr. Hallstrom lives across the street, 850 feet away. berm, building. So I wanted to add a berm here, want to add a berm here, and add a berm right here and there. That's Mr. Hallstrom's driveway. So that's of any last, and then I was going to put sound barrier devices around this edge. And that's the only speaker we're talking about, something like this right here. If you just see that.
And it's just for,
Just for safety and to inform everybody, but right now, the way social distancing is, you tell everybody to gather up, half the people don't come and half of them do, and it's not, when we brought it through, we said that we're not gonna have, because people thought it was gonna be like the high school football games or the college football games. Now, you know, what the score is. We don't need that, and you know from the video I sent in, you don't ever hear it. It's only, hey, can you come over and come over here, we need to talk to you. And also is if we have, because we have paramedics out there, and so then, you know, immediately we have to tell everybody, you know, clear the drive aisle, clear
We
the
can see
drive aisle.
how small it is.
Yeah,
Did you say there's a winery close to you?
yeah, there's Three Horse Winery, and
Horse?
Three, yeah, is it Three Horse?
3 Horse.
Yeah, Three Horse Winery. They're down, they just doubled their size down there, and they're on the way down there. And there's also another gentleman, two properties over, he's gonna start trying to put a winery in too.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
so with that being said, if I could have those two items, I'm good to go for life.
All right, thank you.
So Leon, this will be added as exhibit.
Diana, do you happen to have the exhibit number in front of you? Let me double check. Looks like
We'll
exhibit
get
40.
rebuttal time too. so.
Exhibit 40, we'll add this as exhibit 40.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
without objection, we'll,
Is there any individual testimony?
I'll ask for any individual testimony for or against this proposal. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on this proposal, a review, actually. Is there, the public hearing is now closed. Is there discussion from the board?
I'll kick it off.
Okay.
Yeah, well, just looking at the location, I have a better understanding tonight and understanding how far the homes are away from this, knowing that Firebird Raceway is close by as well, and then really understanding the decibels. In addition to really taking a look at Chaparral Road, knowing there's going to be 22,000 homes going in, this will be used as the main artery. Highway 16 is going the other way. The fact that trucks are louder than the go-karts. I have no problem, and I think they've met all their conditions of approval. So I'd be willing to make a motion tonight we're not approving this, we're just looking at modifications. So I would recommend that we modify the agreement and replace item number 28 with that 206 cc is the high, but then the electric exception for the electric engine powered go-kart. So that allows the ones that are not noisy. In addition, I think it would behoove us to go ahead and add the 3 berms. I think that the owner is willing to do that, and that would certainly further mitigate any noise to the neighbor. And then for safety purposes, I would want to also add the use of a microphone. And that's not a formal motion, that's just me throwing out there what I'm thinking.
Oh, any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm likely to agree with Commissioner Kenyon. I think we had a good testimony here. It's always harder when somebody doesn't show up to testify, because then we can't get the nuance of their complaint and ask additional questions. But I felt like the testimony and the exhibits we saw don't appear to put an undue burden on the neighbors. I also liked hearing that, you know, as you progress with your business, you may upgrade to the electric, which would make it even quieter. And so I think the additional conditions that you're requesting are appropriate, and appreciate you coming and testifying.
If there's no more,
Go ahead.
just make a motion.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion then if we're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, I move, we're not approving this, so I'm going to just make the motion to modify 201-6006-46 CURB John Wood to replace item number 28 with language that states the use of the racetrack for racers is limited to go-karts with an engine size of no more than 206 cc's, except for electric engines powered by race go-karts. And to also add that 3 berms are going to be placed in the area that was identified tonight in between the buildings to prevent any further noise, and that also that they be allowed to use a microphone for safety purposes, and that that microphone be left at a sound level that is appropriate based on what we're talking about here tonight with noise issues.
Chairman, Commissioners, just as a quick point of clarification, we'll want to at least bring revised conditions of approval for board signature at a later date
Okay.
if we are indeed modifying these. So just as a heads up, we'll have to,
Okay.
that'll show up at a future open business meeting or something to that extent.
Well, my thoughts, we could do some brief modifications here tonight, and then the conditions.
Modifications, I think the way staff would want to go is you're modifying condition 28 with the engine size. Looks like you're probably adding a new condition. If I'm looking at the original conditions of approval, there's a new condition 34, adding 3 berms in a certain location. So I think your condition of approval would be to say they should bring a revised landscape plan forward. I don't know how big the berms are gonna be, if they need some kind of engineering overview from our county engineer. So all that needs to just be worked in. I get the gist of your overall
Okay.
motion, but yeah, this can all work.
Okay, and so what we'll do is then we'll make that motion to then be tabled for revised findings of fact, and that should include a landscape plan. That's good. And what's the table date?
25th?
January 25th to January 25th, 2022.
And then record will reflect that we have reviewed the applicant's conditions and have found that his conditions have been met.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, do we need to add a time deadline for installing the berms?
I think we should leave that, yeah, I think we should leave that
Can
staff.
be in the landscape plan.
In the findings of fact and
Yeah, add it
conclusions
to the
that
landscape
staff will
plan.
present to us. So,
Okay.
I think we've,
Staff clear? Richard,
Rich.
you clear?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I believe so.
Okay.
all right,
All righty.
all right, well, thank you.
Guess we vote,
We need to vote.
We don't need,
or do we?
Did you close the public hearing? You closed it.
I did close the public hearing,
Made a
and,
motion.
and you made a motion, and the question was,
Second.
he didn't second.
No, not on your official motion.
Okay. You second
So
it?
second the motion.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. The question is, has the applicant completed the terms and conditions of his original application? And we've added a couple of things that will be to the findings of fact, and we'll prove them at a later date. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I might add, Mr. Chair, just before they leave, that I know that you had a couple of other modifications that you wanted to make, like extending race dates or times or things like that. That would have to be actually, you need to apply for a conditional use permit with staff for those separately, so then that's a separate hearing.
Right, and just to clarify that is, we would just ask to add carts to the track line to make the day shorter. And the one thing that I spoke to Diana today, maybe Gus, is how we bring that forward.
Yeah.
Is it a complete new conditional use permit, or is it a conditional use permit with those items only. And
Staff will work with you on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get it done. Yeah. Thank you, and I wanted to thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, we're on to new business now. We'll take up item number 02102790, VAC Martino, Vincent Martino, a variance on accessory application. We will first have I'll open the public hearing, and then we will hear from staff. Is Diana?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners,
Go ahead.
this is an application. Sorry. This is an application for a variance and an accessory use for a secondary dwelling. They are proposing to exceed the size limitation for the secondary dwelling and allow a secondary dwelling on the main floor. Our code does require it to be on the second floor. The building exists in the R1 district, and the applicant is Vincent Martino. Next slide. So the property is located on Locust Grove and Mary Lane. They do have access on Mary Lane to the main residence. Highlighted in green is the proposed secondary dwelling. It is an accessory structure that was constructed without permits, so they would be required to get permits for that. Next slide. This just shows the footage of the structure. It's a little more than what he proposed in his letter. Next slide. You do have an open storage loft with stairs going up to it, which has been used as part of the living area. They are saying that that will just be storage. If that square footage is actually added into the square footage for the project, it's a lot bigger. Next slide. So just the secondary dwelling they're proposing would be 1,296 square foot. The maximum size that we allow per our code is 900 square feet. The total square foot of the structure is 1,736 square feet. That's adding the 1,296 plus the 440 square foot on the second floor. So the variance does give the applicant a special privilege because it does not meet the 900 square foot or the requirement for storage on the first story and the dwelling on the second story. The variance does not relieve an undue hardship due to the characteristics of the site. The applicant can reduce the size of the structure or use it as an accessory structure for storage. Next slide. So a little background on the project. There was a code enforcement complaint received in 2019 that the secondary dwelling was constructed without approval. We have had several pre-application meetings. The first two were to talk about an event center. And then in 2020 is when the applicant proposed a secondary dwelling. So no building permits were issued. The building official will require a code analysis by an engineer for the structure to change the occupancy. So we did receive the variance in 2021. So it's been several years we've been trying to work with the applicant. Next slide. So Meridian's comprehensive plan, it would be, a secondary dwelling would be compatible with future land use map, except this proposal would exceed the allowed minimum size of the secondary dwelling, and it would detract from the large lot residential character of the neighborhood. Next slide. So staff is recommending denial of the variance and the accessory use. The applicant could propose a text amendment to change Ada County Code. I know that we're going through a code rewrite, but I don't believe all of the changes he's asking for will be amended. And those won't be coming until later this year. And I'll stand for questions.
All right, are there any questions of our staff? Do you have any questions? Okay, thank you, Diana. Okay, are you, Vincent Martino?
I'm Wyatt Johnson, I'm Mr. Martirano's, I'm his attorney on this, and I believe he was trying to call in on this, and I'm not sure, has anybody called in on this?
Yes, there are 2 people on phones. I just unmuted both of them, so he should be able to speak now.
Okay, one of you can give a presentation, you get 12 minutes, and then you get a 5-minute rebuttal after an opposition is entered. So who wants to make the presentation?
Vince, why don't I go ahead and make the presentation you on? Maybe he's not even on.
Is he online?
I have 2 call-in users where their names don't appear because they're on the phone, and they're both unmuted, so if they can hear this, they are able to speak.
Okay, well,
We just asked to identify them.
yeah, you've identified yourself, if you'd like to do it again, so.
I can do it again.
The caller is not responding. Go ahead. They're not responding, so go ahead.
All right. Wyatt Johnson, 199 North Capitol, Suite 200, Boise.
And you are representing,
I'm representing the applicant, Vincent Martirano.
all right, go ahead.
Okay. The story, the way that this is framed out, this sounds terrible. It's not that terrible. In the 80s or 90s, this property, this building that we're talking about was constructed. Building was constructed, it had water, septic, power. It was undoubtedly validly permitted at the time. If you look at the attachments to the packet with the enclosure letter, we have a copy of the tag for the electrical permit that's still within the electrical box that was installed by Idaho Power. Now, my understanding is that the electronic system,
Take your mask off if you want.
huh?
You can take it off if you want, if you're
Um,
comfortable.
This is more as a courtesy to the rest of you. My law partner had a kid who came down with COVID.
I understand. We're just distance, we're at least 6 feet or more.
If it helps, if it's okay with you.
Sure, so we
All
can
right.
get a clean record, yeah. That's
Yeah, that's fine. But the tag, and it's in the materials, is still there from the construction. This was permitted, this was constructed at a time that Ada County was on the paper records. And from what the building official told Mr. Martirano, the conversion to the electronic system happened after that, and there are many cases of documents that are missing. So while you cannot find any copy of the original records, there's still physical evidence that this was a validly constructed building as it is. The building was constructed to its size, and it's been there for 30 or 40 years. So, in 2015, Martirano's bought the property. They didn't build this structure. They bought it as is, and it had the septic and plumbing and the utilities. What they did do is they added a kitchen. They didn't have to modify the exterior of the building or change anything. It was already built out, it was already used as an office or something like that. I mean, it was a livable space. It wasn't a storage garage or anything. It was working space. They added a kitchen, and they've converted it into a livable space. They didn't change the exterior of the building at all. So, what they now have is, it would be an accessory dwelling unit. It just happens to be larger than would be allowed. Now, in the zone, an accessory dwelling unit would be allowed up to 900 square feet. And I think that if you get in here, depending on whether or not you measure from the interior walls, the exterior walls, it's probably accounting for the discrepancy that's noticed in the staff report. But what they did do is, it's not like he went and built a new building. He used an existing building and added a kitchen and put it into a use that is allowed in this zone. The staff position on this is that it's in excess of the square footage and it should be denied. If this were something that were being built from scratch, I can see the sense in that. But where you're simply taking an existing space that's been there and it's not changing the characteristic of the neighborhood, and it's providing for a use that is already permitted, it would seem that the square footage on an existing unit, it would seem wasteful to require that this building somehow be modified or changed to physically remove a couple of couple hundred square feet of space. Mr. Margarano, after he got the zoning complaint from whoever, tried to work with the building official. The building official came out and looked at the place and worked with him. And the building official said, look, we can get this permitted. Just make sure that the septic is up to par for the size of the space. And he went down to Southwest District Health, had them come out, find out what their qualifications were. He had a 750-gallon septic. They said for a building the size, you need 1,000. The septic system was otherwise working. It was in fine working order. But they said, do a 1,000-gallon capacity septic tank, and you're fine. So he went and he spent $10,000, got the tank put in. And so the tank met the requirements, and he goes back to the building official, says, I've got in the tank. We should be fine. And he doesn't hear back from the building official. Next that he hears from Code Enforcement Officer Horn. Officer Horn comes down and says, well, looks okay, but maybe you can, convert 100 square feet of this into storage or something like that. That'll be fine. Mr. Margarano's, great, let's do that. Next, he hears from staff, and staff is opposed to the 1,000 square feet. I think that the square footage requirement is too rigid and warrants a variance in this case. If you look at the three things to look at in terms of variance. Questions. One, is this a special right? I disagree with staff's interpretation. I do not think that this is asking for a special right because there is a right to have an accessory dwelling use in this zone. It's the square footage that is at issue. It's not the use. So it's not a special use by any means. Two, does this relieve an undue hardship due to the physical characteristics of the site? I would argue that in this case, the building was constructed and built, and as far as we can tell, legally permitted when it was built. We do have records of that.
You have records of a building permit and that when it was originally built?
The electrical permit, we have an electrical permit that's issued on this. I don't see how you'd have the electrical permit without having a building permit on this.
Okay.
And the permit, the attachments, it's actually in the materials. I flashed it a minute ago. It's the red tag. The tag referencing the electrical permit is still on the inside of the electrical box. There were permits issued for this when it was constructed. It had to be validly constructed.
What's the date on that?
Oh, gosh. There is not a date on this. There is a number on that permit. And it references the permit as P22252 by the Department of Labor and Industrial Electrical Division.
Did you attempt to locate a building permit?
We tried to, and here was, he went down and he requested records on that, and here's what he was informed. He's informed that this construction was done when the records were kept in paper. Now it's converted to an electrical system. And Mr. Furman informed him, look, we're not going to be able to go back and find the paper. Apparently, there's been some problem in the conversion of the records from the paper format to the electrical, or to the electronic system. So, I mean, it would sound like, I mean, the fact that there's a tag and there's a permit there and that Idaho Power put this in, I mean, this wasn't a home-done job, you know? So it would have to have been permitted. I don't think Idaho Power would have run the electric out there. The box, I mean, it's an Idaho Power box that's metering that. It's separately metered. So I think that the only
That's not a
evidence.
meter for both houses, because this is
No.
accessory dwelling, that's a meter
This
just
is-
for that house.
This is an independently metered house, or
Okay.
dwelling unit. So this wasn't a home-done job. The only reasonable inference is that the records, the original county records of the permit got lost somewhere in the transition, but we still do have physical evidence that there were permits available.
You know why there was a separate meter? Because it was not used as a residential unit at that time, was it?
My clients owned this since 2015. The improvements were done from what everybody's been able to tell from the stuff, it looks like it was done in the 80s or 90s. So whoever did the improvements is long gone. You know, we don't know why. But, you know, so that is the structure as it is. And so when you look at this, is there, I would argue the building as it exists, as it's existed for 34 years in a validly permitted building, all that he did was modify the interior of this for a use that's already permitted. That seems like reuse. It doesn't seem, that seems to be a hardship that's really created by the physical characteristics of the site. And there's no detriment to the public, because what he has done has converted a building that's existing, it's not changing the neighborhood in any way, for an otherwise allowed use except for the square footage. In this case, it's essentially, you know, it's recycling, if you will. I think that this would be an appropriate application for a variance in this case, just under these circumstances. I think they're special circumstances, and this isn't going to be happening every day. If he was coming in and building something new, I think it would be a completely different situation.
Okay. All right, any questions of the applicant? Mr. Chair. Yes.
So is the detriment that there may be extra people there and extra vehicles coming and going?
I don't think so, because we're talking about a couple of 100 feet of square footage. But the use would be, this exact use would be allowed if it was technically 900 square feet. It's already an allowed use. So the number of vehicles, the number of people, none of that's going to make a difference. And a couple of 100 square feet isn't adding people.
So just, Mr. Chair, for
Yes.
clarification, so the total square footage is 1,736.
I think the way that he measured it, the way that it was measured, I'm sure he must have measured it internally. I got these numbers from my client. He measured it internally, got 1,000 square feet, and he was measuring the main level, and he was treating the upper level as storage.
So I have a question for staff then, when we're finished here.
Okay,
That's all I have for now.
Okay.
okay. Any other questions? When your client bought the property, was Vincent Martirano, was he planning on living in this residence?
I honestly couldn't tell you what his intention was when he bought it. I don't know.
How long has he lived in the residence?
I think it says in 2020 is when he did the kitchen. So I'd assume that he's
When
been
he put the
living there
kitchen
since 2020. Huh?
When he put the kitchen in?
I think it was when he put the kitchen in.
And so your contention is the current zoning would provide for a living quarter there if it were just a little smaller square footage?
That's exactly right.
Okay. Okay,
All right.
thank you. Any questions? Anyone else wish to speak to the issue?
We do have multiple people online who would like to testify.
Okay.
First, I have Tracia Griffiths.
Teresa Griffith, just a second here, I'll need to. Teresa, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
It's Tricia Griffiths.
Okay, state your full name, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay, Tricia Griffiths. And I live right next door to the Moderanos, you can see on the left on the map. They rent their house as VRBO. And at the neighborhood meeting, we were told that they weren't going to be renting anymore, but it's still on the site. And when they rent out, they live in that dwelling there. And it's my understanding that they had to update the septic because when they first started using the VRBO, excuse me, the house rented out to 12 to 14 people. And with them living in that dwelling, you couldn't have that many people on a sewer system like that. So they had to update the sewer system to accommodate extra people. And so they have a pool in their backyard, and with the rentals, even though it says 6 to 8 people, people always have extra family and friends coming over. And our back bedrooms are about 50 feet from their pool. So you could hear the noise. And even though they try to be quiet, the noise carries over. So I think what my concern is we were told that maybe it was going to use for in-laws or somebody to live there. So I think my biggest problem is if it's approved, then they could up the number of people to be renting their home. And it seems like if there's more people, then it's like having a party every day during the rental time right next to us.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
So your main objection is the number of people that is potentially there or the number of people that are actually there?
The number of people that could potentially rent the VRBO, right now they rent it out to 6 to 8 people. But before it was like 12 to 14 people.
Okay.
And like I said, even though you rent it out to that many people, they invite extra friends or whoever because there's a pool back there. So
That's not what
there's more people that attend to come to the pool.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just want to make it clear that that's not what we're considering here tonight, whether that's a VRBO or a pool is causing noise. I think for me, can you please be very clear about how this variance would be detrimental to your health, safety, or your welfare?
Several of the people that don't know where this place is located, as you can see right next to us is a private lane. And they go driving down the private lane, and you can see our shop back there, and lots of times we find vehicles back there and we have to go ask them what they're doing. And they're trying to find this location. So I don't know if we have to start putting up gates or what across our front property to, because, I don't know if it's strangers or if, exactly what's going on. So we have to check it out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else? Ryan, Mr. Davidson, do you have a question or anything?
No, I was just curious. I couldn't tell where the pool was on this map. Does staff know where the pool is?
Commissioner Davidson, it is, the actual house is right about the word site. And then they have a pool right to the west of the house. So the main house takes access off from Mary Lane.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Commissioner
So-
Davison, the pool is just to the west of the house. There's kind of a light area there. You can almost see the sidewalk around the pool.
Okay.
If they're going to just, keep it, like to their family, just living there or something, then, that's fine, and if they're going to use it for storage, but I think the former owners there, as a shop,
Okay.
and he was over.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I don't have any more questions,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, any, no more questions? Anyone else want to testify?
I have Julie Edwards.
Julie Edwards. Can you hear me, Julie? Julie?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes to give your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Julie Edwards, and my address is 1310 East Mary Lane. I want to begin by saying I'm opposed to the application due to Ada County Codes 8-5-3-40A2 and 8-5-3-40C1. On May 27th, 2021, I attended the neighborhood meeting along with several others. Mr. Martirano was the only one in attendance from his end. He explained what was happening with his project and stated along the way that he was told he would have to either tear out the kitchen or the bathroom to be in compliance with code, and that he wasn't going to do either because he already spent thousands building it out, and that he was willing to get a lawyer if he had to. He also said once he gets hooked up to city water and sewer, nobody can tell him what the hell to do with this property. Not a complete quote, but close. He was fixing up the building so his mother-in-law could have a place to stay when his father-in-law was out of town, because she doesn't like to be alone. Apparently alone in a barn 200 feet from the main house is different than staying home alone in her own home. He then opened up the discussion to questions, and I asked him about the VRBO. They've been running out of the main house for several years. Their lawyer letter states in 2020, they began living in the outbuilding and renting the main house to someone else. That someone else is not a single family, but rather a multitude of people throughout the year. Mary Lane provides access to the driveway from the main home, and it's a private road that we as homeowners all pitch in to maintain. When they rent out their house, there are numerous cars driving up and down our road, causing additional wear and tear on our dime, not to mention traffic and at times excessive noise on our dead-end road of 9 homes. I asked Mr. Martirano how often the home was going to be rented out summer of 2021, and he claimed it would only be rented out a few weekends and that they wouldn't be renting it out after that. As it turns out, it was rented almost the entire summer of 2021. One group out, one group in, all summer long, while their family of 4 lived in the 1-bedroom secondary dwelling in the back. Back to their application, the letter states this request relieves a hardship. This was an avoidable hardship on their part that they had gone through, or had they gone through the proper channels initially, they would have known their size limitations and could have remodeled the inside accordingly. And for their lawyer to state they're being forced to demolish a pre-existing structure is simply false and dramatic. He's not being asked to tear down the entire structure. The interior changes made illegally were not pre-existing. We bought our acreage homes on Mary Lane because we love the space we have to raise our children and appreciate the sense of community we share with our neighbors. But I feel like the Martiranos have other intentions, perhaps to eventually rent out the secondary dwelling as a VRBO too. At $485 a night for the main house during peak season, I don't see why they wouldn't, right?
Okay,
And
Julie,
Yes.
could you wrap it up?
Yes, I can. I just wanted to also mention, they've been living in that home for 6 or 7 years now, 6 years, I believe. And their vehicle license plates, they still have Oregon plates on all their cars. And I thought there was a law about that too, 90 days.
Okay.
You had to have.
Is there any questions of the commission to Julie?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Julie. Is there anyone else wish to testify?
We're gonna give our
Yes,
two
please.
call-in users. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Could you state your name for the record?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
I'm Vincent Martirano. I'm the owner of the house.
Oh, okay, Vincent.
You can't testify, but
Okay.
you can ask him questions.
You can't testify right now. You can testify on rebuttal if you'd like to.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. Anyone else wish to testify?
I don't have anyone else online.
Okay, Vincent, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you'd like. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, well, I can hear you just fine. Can you give us your name again and your address?
Vincent Martirano, 5495 South Locust Grove Road, Meridian, Idaho.
Okay, and you have 5 minutes for a rebuttal of what you've heard.
Okay, well, like my lawyer said, I didn't build the buildings. They were there. They already existed with everything in them. We do rent our house out on BBRO. That's true. We rent it a few months out of every year. And it is, me and my wife's businesses were struggling, and we're doing it to save our house. There is that building in the back will never be rented. It's for personal use only for us or my mother-in-law. I did everything that was asked of me by the three city officials that came out to tell me that they were going to get me in compliance. They said, do what I say, and we'll get this in compliance with the living quarter. I spent the money. I cooperated. I did everything that they asked me to do. I got the permits they asked me to get and did the work. When it was all said and done, they said, congratulations, you now have another one-bedroom house on your property. Until the first time I heard anything about planning and zoning or doing it the right way so that the people against me wanted to say was after I did everything they asked me to do. And that's the first time they said, well, now you got to talk to planning and zoning. After I did everything they asked me to do and I spent the money to do it. It was the first time they said, you got to go through planning and zoning. And I'm not asking for something that I didn't already have. It existed when I bought the house. It was there. All I did is make some upgrades to the inside of the facility. I didn't change the structure of the building. I didn't do any of that. And as far as the VBRO, I don't know if and when we are going to rent the house, but this ain't about the VBRO. This is about the building. So we're just, I just don't know how I can do everything that I was asked to do. And then all of a sudden they pull it out from underneath me and say, no, now after you spent the money and did everything we asked you to do, now it's going to go away.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else, sir?
That building has its own, it doesn't impact Mary Lane at all. So it's got its own entrance off of Locust Grove. It's not even accessible from Mary Lane.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant from the commission?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Yes, what year did you remodel the inside of it?
I started probably back in 2019, and all I basically did is it already had everything in it. I just changed out the fixtures to new fixtures. I put new toilets in it, take the old toilets out, put the new toilet in, new sinks, new cabinets. It was all there. When I bought the property, I was told that those were commercial buildings and I have a loading dock out there. It was a commercial cabinet business, and it had its own address. Then those buildings do have a separate service, and they were rental income property. And that's what I bought. That's what I was told I was buying. I had it inspected. It passed inspection. There was never an issue that I wasn't buying buildings that were already there, and that building was already there. So.
Okay, so were you made aware that you needed to get a building permit?
I was never told to get it. I didn't build the building. I talked to the building inspector, and his words to me is, why am I even here? You did not build these buildings. I said, I know I didn't build these buildings. The buildings were actually built back in the 70s when the house was built.
Was your
The remodel was done in the late 80s, early 90s, according to him, is what he could find by the windows were stamped 1990. The septic system was put in the late 80s, early 90s from the inspection that I had done on it. So it all made sense that at some point in the late 80s, early 90s, they came in and remodeled these buildings and then rented them out as commercial to a commercial cabinet business.
So your view is.
In question, go ahead.
So your view in 2019, you did not do a remodel. You simply changed a few fixtures.
I changed the fixtures. The thing I did do, and I told the building inspector, and he took pictures of it and said I did a good job, is it had the upper deck that was storage was 10 feet, and I extended it to another 10 feet, and now it's 20 feet, and put the staircase into it because it was accessed by ladders.
Your attorney said you put a kitchen in.
Yes, the kitchen, you can call it a kitchen. The kitchen was there. It already had all the cabinets. It already had the sink. It was used as an office. All I did, if anything, was the stove, which I guess makes it a kitchen. But it already had all the cabinets in it. It had the sinks in it. It had uppers, lowers. It had everything. Bathroom. It was used,
That's fine,
as an
thank
office.
you, thank you.
That's fine. Yeah, we understand that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from,
I have questions of staff.
okay, well, just a second. Do you have any questions of, Commissioner Davidson? Of, Mr.
Martirano.
Materano?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Martirano. We're going to, we have some questions of staff, if you don't mind. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear here on looking at the square footage. So we're saying it's 1736, is that correct? And was that measured from the inside, was that measured from the inside or outside? Is there much of a gap between what we're showing and what they're saying it is?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, what I did was use our mapping tool for the square footage, and I took the square footage from the mapping. So it is approximate, but it is a lot larger than what they have indicated in their letter.
And then can you tell me, does the storage area count towards the 900 maximum square footage that we're allowing? Or is that in addition?
Commissioner, I believe that that would count as part of it and kick it up to the 900 square feet because it's basically a part of the floor plan. There's no blocking of that to use it just as storage.
So if we flip this, we allowed storage to be upstairs and living quarters to be downstairs, which we're going to be changing our code amendment at some point. We might have to postpone this one for a little bit to get it to code. If we flip these in our code and we allow this configuration where the storage is on top, if they were to take that storage where it's kind of an open, you can tell it's like an open loft look, and they just finish that off, then would this be closer to compliance, and how close?
We wouldn't count it as part of the square footage, but there's still just the main level is about 1,200 square feet.
Okay, and that main
So
level,
our limit is at 900.
okay. Our limit is 900, right?
Correct.
900, okay. So if we did something like that, then we're just looking at this lower unit being used that was constructed back in the 90s, it sounds like. Okay, I'm still thinking on this. Thank you, that's all I have for now.
Actually, Commissioner Kenya,
What's that?
that the structure was actually built prior to 86, but there was not a building permit on that project. They're showing the electrical, which is done by the state electrical, not an Ada County building permit. So the building official for Ada County has gone out, he has looked at it. It would be required to get a building permit
Right, I was reading that in
because we
here.
don't have,
Well, Diana,
it has not gotten a building permit.
Right.
well, Diana, I do know enough about electrical hookups, and the power company won't hook up a power unless there's a proper permit. Is that right?
It would be the electrical permit, which is done by the state. Ada County Development Services, we only do building permits. So electrical and plumbing permits are done through the state of Idaho.
Well, I've done a little bit of construction and I could not get a utility to hook up to my property unless I had the proper permits. They insist on, at least that's, when I've done it before, that I had to have a proper permit before both the gas and the electric utility would hook up.
Chairman, to further Diana's point, the state of Idaho does the plumbing and electrical, and they don't always coordinate with Ada County on whether or not that structure's been permitted with a larger building permit as a dwelling or an accessory structure. So there is just that interagency disconnect that still happens today, and it sounds like it was happening back in the 90s as well, so, or maybe even the 80s.
Okay, all right. Diana, do you know if that septic tank that's there, is that for both structures? Because I understand the electricity is for, there's a separate meter for both homes, is that correct? Is the,
Mr. Chairman, I believe they put in a new septic system just for that secondary dwelling, like a year ago or 2 years ago.
okay, so there's a separate septic system for the other home as well? Right, okay. Well,
Correct.
well, then one of the testifying people was not informed then. They seemed to indicate that the septic was for both dwellings and not enough for this property. Okay, any other questions of staff?
Yeah, when you said they didn't get a building permit, did you mean for the upgrades or originally?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Davidson, originally, we have no documentation for a building permit for that structure on that property. And we do have history maps that have labeled when we gave zoning certificates specifically. And then we do have old documentation for building permits. There was nothing in our history maps for that site for those structures.
So you heard the previous testimony that they said they contacted the office and because everything's been transferred digitally, somehow it got lost. What was your thoughts on that? Is that plausible?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I don't believe that this structure has ever had a building permit. We do still have some of the old records in our office from the 70s, 80s, 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, Chairman, Commissioners, there was a period of time in Ada County when accessory structures like this didn't require building permits, and it wasn't until, as I understand it, around 2000 that we started just requiring even zoning certificates, which has then evolved to what we have today, which is a planning approval for an accessory use and a full building permit. But yeah, there was a period of time in Ada County when, these types of things were built without permits.
So this structure, the applicant indicated and his lawyer that this structure was originally built for some sort of furniture or carpentry thing. And you're saying then it wouldn't have required a building permit at that time?
Yeah, Chairman, it's quite possible that even despite that being a commercial building, if that's what was happening in there, that we weren't even requiring permits back then. That's a little less typical than a residential structure like this. And perhaps it was a residential structure that someone was operating a commercial business out of, as kind of a home occupation or something to that extent. I will just say there's lots of properties in Ada County that have those types of histories. So this isn't a completely unique situation.
So it would be difficult to find a lot of building permits that may or may not have been issued.
Well, I think so. And also, again, to the point where there was just a period of time in Ada County where we didn't require permits for accessory structures. Even primary dwellings, there was a period of time where we weren't requiring people to pull permits for that. That predates the 80s a little bit. But yeah, there's just a history there that does exist. I don't necessarily believe it's a loss of records. It may have just been there was never a record for the structure itself. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair. So the one bathroom in the kitchen, is that allowable at a 900 square foot secondary dwelling?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kent, yes, it is.
Okay, I was just
About
curious,
the
because it was brought up that it was a problem, and I thought that that was okay in this scenario. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, are there any other questions of staff or the applicant? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing on this application. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll kick it off. This is a tough one for me. I think what I'm hearing from the testimony that was in opposition tonight is, unfortunately, it's more on the VRBO, and they really didn't, to me, address what I was looking for on number 3, which is, tell me what the detriment is to your health, safety, or welfare. And I understand that the parking of some cars behind the barn was what one person had mentioned, and the other one was just really about the VRBO, and I think that related to the VRBO as well. So I think that there might be a remedy there through maybe, I don't know, probably not code violation, but if there's a homeowners association, I think that could be taken up there. Now, in going to the other two, the standards that we have to look at first I wasn't thinking that this would be a special privilege because, they remodeled the house and they could have done it smaller, and then we find out tonight that they really didn't. It's the same kind of footprint in square footage on the inside. And they've just kind of added some features, a stove and some lights. And so I really think that because it was built back in, like you said, who knows, 80s, whatever, that asking them to tear things down and somehow, or make it smaller would probably be a hardship. And then I guess finally for me to try to get them into code, I know that we're going to be changing our code, and I think one of the things that this board will look at and approve is, to us, it makes no sense to insist on having the storage loft downstairs. And I think the way this is set up is actually more practical, especially for older people that are living at home. If you're going to have a secondary in-law dwelling, you don't want your grandma going up and downstairs, right, through the storage unit on the downstairs. So we're going to be switching that code or changing that code up anyway. And so I don't see any harm, since we're going to be doing it in a few months, 3 or 4 months down the road, to make them go ahead and wait for that, since we're going to be changing that. So the only thing that I would say is, if I'm going to make a motion to approve this, would be, of course, the condition of approval, they have to get a building permit and meet all the requirements under the building permit. And that it will not be used as a rental, no B&B or VRBO, so no rental, and that access will be off of Mary Street only, and that if that's going to be maintained to be a loft on the top part, so that doesn't become an extra bedroom, that be sheetrocked off. So that's kind of where I'm headed for.
Well, I would have one question, that the dwelling as I read it, is not, there's no access off Mary, it's only accessible off Locust Grove. Am I right?
Chairman, that is correct. It looks like this structure is accessed off of Locust Grove versus Mary Lane.
Was that what they said? So
Yeah.
Locust Grove, so I got that backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd only be off Locust Grove, because
That's
it
the
was,
only
it was
access.
Mary Lane that was causing the issue, so sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, so just reverse that,
yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
They
Yeah,
can't
because
enter
I
from
don't
East
want-
Red
Yeah, I
Barn.
don't want additional traffic going in.
Right, and that's the only accessibility there is through
So,
Locust
yep.
Grove.
There's no access on that East Red Barn on the south.
Well, that's what we were told, that the only access to it is through Locust Grove.
So I said no access off Mary Lane, so
Yeah.
it would be off Locust
Right,
Grove.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'm tending to agree. I almost could say you could, not count that 440 square feet open loft against them. I don't know if when it was originally built, that loft was there. It almost looks like it was not designed for that, and that was sort of a afterthought. I get that it does functionally increase the square footage, but I don't know, it's just so arbitrary to say that that has to be the living space and the bottom has to be the storage, and you just, and I do get that there are concerns with the VRBO. In fact, the city of Boise is debating right now whether or not they should put additional restrictions on residential rentals, short-term rentals. They're working their way through that right now. So obviously there are concerns about that, but as far as the actual building we're talking right now, I don't see any real concerns to the neighbor. So, yeah, that's what I have to say.
Did you close it?
Yes, I closed the public hearing, yeah. And I would tend to agree with you, particularly in relation to, I wouldn't want to be climbing up stairs to live in it.
Not at our age.
No, I wouldn't want to do it now. I mean, I'm not a grandma. I am a grandpa, but I wouldn't want to be climbing upstairs to go to bed. So anyway, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion that we table this to probably January 25th, right, for revised findings of fact and conclusions of law, and to approve 202102790-V-AC with conditions of approval that everything required by a building permit will be performed. In addition, that the unit will never be used as a rental unit, and that there will be no access off Mary Street to this unit, only access off of Locust Grove. And that the upper loft will be sheetrocked in and not to be used as a bedroom or living quarters, only as storage.
Is there a second to that motion?
What about an additional condition of some extra signage to just direct people where they should park and where they shouldn't park?
For,
Well, it'd be directed towards the VRBO people.
yeah, that would be fine.
Okay,
I'll second that
with that signage requirement.
with the signage requirement.
Okay, is it clear what the motion is? Staff clear on that?
And it was January 25th?
January 25th.
25th, it'll be the, when you can prepare some amended findings of fact and conclusions. All right, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
moving along, we have application 202-103-127 VACTP, Roman and Michelle Burke. Is the applicant here? Okay. Do we have a report from staff? Okay, go ahead.
Chairman, Commissioners.
Wait a minute, I gotta open the public hearing. Public hearing's open.
Thank you. Chairman, Commissioners, Project 2021-3127 VACTP is a variance and accessory use application to allow an existing accessory structure located in the 25-foot setback to remain on the property, and a temporary use to live in the existing dwelling while constructing a new dwelling. Located at 6109 South Torrega Lane, which is a private road and is in the Rural Urban Transition District. The detached accessory structure was built between 1986 and 1995 with no record of a building permit or zoning certificate. At the time the structure was built, the side setback would have also been 25 feet. At the time the current owners purchased the property in 2007, there was an existing fence line that was assumed to be the property line, 21 feet from the structure. Since then, the fence line has been corrected with the record of survey, and the structure sits 16 feet from the property line, an encroachment of 9 feet into that setback. In 2013, the structure had an addition that was done, which expanded the square footage to over 1,500 square feet, which is why the accessory use application is required. Currently, the subject property is bordered by the city of Meridian to the west. The current zoning for the property within the city limits is medium low-density residential, R4. That has a side setback of 5 feet and a rear setback of 15 feet. The proposed future land use for the subject property by the city of Meridian is medium-density residential, which would have a zoning of R4 to R8. That would also have a side setback of 5 feet or a future rear setback of 12 to 15 feet, depending on the zoning, all of which the existing structure would meet. The applicant has also applied for a temporary use application to live in their existing single-family dwelling while they construct a new dwelling. This approval would be good for 12 months or until completion of construction, whichever is less. At the completion of the construction of the new dwelling, the existing single-family dwelling would be required to be removed from the property. Key points of this application are that when the subject property is annexed in the future, it's likely to have a side setback of only 5 feet. There were no objections from any neighboring property owners, including the property owner directly adjacent to the structure. The variance is not detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare, as there was no agency objections. And without the variance, the structure must be removed or no permits, including the temporary use, could be issued for the property. Staff is recommending approval of the variance, accessory use, and temporary use, and I'll stand for any questions.
How long after the completion of the home are we going to give them to remove the existing home?
The existing home has to be removed before the certificate of occupancy is issued. I do believe that we do issue temporary. I might need help on this one.
Yeah, Chairman. I guess it's working, sorry. Yeah, Corey's correct. So typically, a condition of approval is that the temporary use is removed prior to final occupancy on the new single-family home. On occasion, we have issued a temporary use, or a temporary certificate of occupancy to allow them to kind of transition from moving out of that home into the new home. But that's usually a limited, 3 to 6 month period at most, so.
Yeah, it'd be kind of difficult to remove the home before they move into their other one.
Yeah, it's always kind of a shuffle when people go through this process with us.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So is this the home they're going to tear down?
That will be the home that will be required to be removed from the property. That's correct.
Pretty nice home to be torn down and removed.
The barn will stay there?
If you approve the variance, the barn could stay.
Okay.
And that was mainly because there was the fence line was off, right? And when they resurveyed, they discovered the difference. Okay.
Well, that would even be a hard home to move, the way it's built. Okay, I don't have any more questions. All right, Mr. Burke, you have 12 minutes, but you don't need to take it all if you don't want to.
Okay. I appreciate the time tonight. The price of real, sorry, do I need to state my name?
Yes, give your name for the record.
Okay, Roman Burke, 6109 Targa Lane, Meridian, Idaho.
Okay.
It's not a secret that our valley has grown. The price of land and the cost of housing have increased. We have lived on this property for more than 14 years, and in an effort to make a transition into a home that we have wanted to build for a while, we opted to build within our own property rather than to look elsewhere and to have to see an escalation in cost of doing so. We needed to bring our property up to code, and we have been very diligent, I think, at attempting to do all that's been asked of us by the staff and meeting the applications and fees, as well as to follow through with all recommendations that have been made of us.
Okay.
What are you going to do with your house?
It's an
Let
excellent,
somebody move it?
an excellent question. Yeah, I would rather disable a portion of it at present, but it's a question that I will have to figure out in the meantime. We've considered having it moved, having somebody else purchase the actual house and moving it to a property of their choosing versus demolition. In sitting here tonight, I've considered, would we qualify if we were to take down part of the house and use it as an accessory use building, meeting code requirements at that time? It's one more box that we have to check in the future, but one that we'll cross that bridge, I suppose, as we get closer to it.
Figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could move it if you cut the garage and the place over top of
Right.
the garage, you
Yeah.
could probably move the rest of it, and even the garage, but it would take two moves, I believe, or two, anyway. Go ahead. Anybody else have any questions?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any one that wish to testify for or against the application?
You can sit down.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve application number 202-103-127-V-AC-TP based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law contained in the staff report and the testimony heard here tonight.
Yeah, I'll make the second. I think this application complies with the code, and I recommend the approval of the variance, the accessory use, and the temporary use as outlined.
Okay, I think I can support that. You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, we have application 202-103-168 VSN Little Sign Incorporated. I will open the public hearing on this application, and we'll hear from staff.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Just real quick, I'd like to give a shout out to Corey. That's her first presentation here before you. And she did an awesome job, and she's been pulling
Hey, way to go, Corey.
pulling double duty, helping me with all the assistant planner stuff that she used to do, as well as being an associate.
job.
So she's,
Okay.
yeah, we're excited to have her doing more of this for us. All right, I'll jump into 2021-01368-V-SN. Chairman and Commissioners, the request before you is a variance associated with a freestanding sign. The applicant is Lytle Signs, and they're being represented by the legal firm Clark Wardle, although as I understand it, we might hear more from Lytle Signs tonight than Clark Wardle. The subject property is a 3.1 acre parcel zoned airport industrial. It is located outside of the city of Boise impact area at the northwest corner of the I-84 off-ramp and Eisenman Road. The board recently approved an off-street parking facility for Mr. Gass, which is located to the north. Surrounding properties are occupied by either industrial or commercial uses, as well as open rangeland. Pictured here is the proposed sign and its location on the subject property, highlighted here with the green box. The applicant has requested a variance to allow for the installation of a 100-foot tall sign. The Airport Industrial District allows for a maximum height of 40 feet typically, so that is, again, why the variance is before you. In reviewing the applicant's request for a variance, staff has recommended approval based on the following. One, the variance shall relieve an undue hardship due to the characteristics of the site. The property and surrounding area contains significant slopes and hills that would inhibit the view of a shorter sign. Pictured here is a rendering of the sign as it would be seen from westbound traffic on I-84, so traveling, say, from Mountain Home into Boise. This would be kind of your view, and as the applicant has demonstrated, a taller sign than 40 feet would be required here in order for someone to actually see that in time to make the off-ramp to the Mr. Gass facility.
So before you move on, Mr. Chair, can you go back? So how far out is this? So we're looking at 100 feet, a mile? I mean, what?
Chairman, Commissioner Kenyon, I'll probably ask the applicant to give us the exact distance that this was taken at, or an approximation there. I mean, by my estimate, I think we're probably a quarter mile to a half mile. Just depending on how quickly you drive on that freeway, that looks to be about something you could do in 30 seconds or less. So that's to the actual sign. To the actual off-ramp, you're looking at, from this point, that's like a 2 to 3 second decision point that you have to make in terms of seeing the sign and knowing to make that exit. But again, I think those might be details the applicant can share in greater detail.
And this is traveling west.
Yes.
On the freeway.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, the sign will be definitely visible coming out of Boise. If you're aware of the area, Boise sits lower than kind of this area, so that sign will be visible longer eastbound than it would be westbound. But, signs have to get traffic from both sides, so. Any other questions before I move on?
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right. Pictured here is a map from our GIS system detailing some of the significant slopes and hills impacting the subject property. These darker colors are, very steep slopes. Lighter colors are less steep. And again, if you're familiar with the area, you kind of understand what happens out here as you're leaving Boise and heading to Mountain Home. It is a dramatic rise for the most part in terms of the highway.
Can you go back? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So are they saying that this is 50 feet or above on that bottom circle where it's kind of dark brown down?
Yeah, Chairman Commissioner, that is a percentage slope. Yeah, so it's not necessarily a 50-foot tall hill. I think it's probably more, it might even be more than that. It's the severity of the slope. So 50% is much more severe than, say, a 10% slope.
Right, but
More
that really
gradual.
doesn't tell us much.
Oh, I guess,
Look at that and figure out.
yeah, I mean, I guess if you go back to this picture here, you can kind of see some of the hillsides that you're dealing with
Yeah.
out in the area.
Okay. And then, was that a curve right there too? No, that's Memory Lane, that's the curve. Okay, so the freeway's pretty straight there, right?
Yeah, this is the freeway,
Yeah, that's
right?
pretty straight.
This is, gosh, let's see. This is the off-ramp. Well, pictured here is the off-ramp you would have to make exiting Boise, heading, gosh, now I'm all turned around, driving east. So this is that I-84 off-ramp, and then you make your turn over here to the site itself. Traveling this direction from Mountain Home, I might need to defer to the applicant as to where the off-ramp actually is, but it's behind kind of this hillside area where, again, you would need this taller sign in order to see kind of what was going on in order to make that exit. But again, I think the applicant can share those details in better fashion. So in addition to relieving an undue hardship, the variance will also not grant a right or special privilege. Other signage along the I-84 corridor exceeds the 40-foot height limit that I mentioned before. Pictured here is an example, which is the Boise stage stop located at the intersection of I-84 and the Orchard Access Road. So this actually is in Ada County, and it was a sign that we approved back in the day.
Oh, what's the height in this?
The height of this one is 91 feet. So
And the stage stop, how far out is that?
that's at the Orchard Access Road, so that's further, closer to Mountain Home. Sorry, I'm completely turned around now that I've tried to say north, south, east, and west. It'd be further southeast, I believe.
So that's not out by Simcoe Road?
I think it's before Simcoe Road. Simcoe Road, that's our southern boundary for the county, isn't it?
Yeah,
I
so
might be
Simcoe.
relying on someone who's been at the county longer than me to give me that, but yeah, this is before Simcoe Road, as I believe.
Yeah.
So there were no comments received from the public, and all reviewing agencies approved the project with standard conditions, with the lone exception being the city of Boise, who requested the sign be reduced in height and sign area. You did receive a late comment from the applicant kind of detailing their position on this, and I will say staff shares that perspective. This is not in their area of city impact, so it's not subject to their comprehensive plan, or it's also not in their city limits, so it's not subject to their zoning ordinance. So with that, we appreciate the comment, but it's not really one that if we were to make a decision based on that, it might not be our best move. So in conclusion, staff recommends approval with the conditions before you, and I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions?
I probably have questions for the applicant,
Okay.
not for staff at this time. Thanks.
Is the applicant on the phone, or where's the applicant?
The applicant is online.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. You have 12 minutes.
Wonderful. This is Kathleen Carroll. I work for Lytle Signs, 1925 Kimberly Road, Twin Falls, Idaho. We are asking for the variance for the sign at 100 feet. As it was discussed earlier, this exit is quite a ways from the sign location. There are hills out there, and there is an overpass. We have asked for the 100 feet simply because you will not be able to see the sign at anything less until you are past the exit and past the overpass. We did go out when we were getting ready to ask for this variance. We did go out and flag with our crane a height of 65 feet, and you could not see you could barely, it was right at the very top of that hill there of where 65 feet was, which means that would be the very least that the sign could be. It would have to be well above that in order to be able to see it from a distance. We are asking for the 100 feet just to, again, clear those mountains that are out there. As you know, and if you have been out to this property, Mr. Gas has done significant improvements out there and made this very nice. They have leveled some of the ground out there. And so where we're going to put our sign is in a lower area even than up at the very east end of the property. So we are asking for that 100-foot variance.
Okay. Thank you. Is it Little Signs or Lytle Signs?
It is Lytle Signs.
Lytle Signs, okay. Are there any questions from the commission? Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. So do you happen to know, I don't know who brought this information to the board, but the Boise Stage Stop, that 91-foot sign, when that was approved?
I don't. It's been there long before I started working at Lytle Signs. I've been here 22 years.
And it's in Ada County?
I
Sure.
believe it is, yes.
Chairman, Commissioner Kennedy, yes, that was approved back, I believe, in the 90s.
90s?
May have even been the late 80s, and it is in Ada County, yeah.
And that property is sort of on a rise there. I mean, you can see it for miles.
Yeah, I think you continue to climb out of the bottom of the Treasure Valley on your way over to Mountain Home until you kind of hit that peak and then drop down into the Mountain Home area. And yeah, Orchard Access Road is, I think, at an even higher elevation than this off-ramp.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Further questions for the applicant. How long has Mr. Gass been there at this site?
They opened approximately 2 months ago.
And do you know why this wasn't brought to the attention of, was it P&Z that you went through?
Chairman, Commissioner Kennedy, this was I apologize, Lytle Signs, I forgot your first name. This came through as a rezone and a conditional use in a master site plan for a parking facility associated with the Mr. Gas project, which is actually in the city of Boise city limits. So the area highlighted red is Ada County, and this northern boundary right here is that area of city impact boundary. So up here is the actual, for lack of a better term, truck stop facility. And then down here, this area marked site is the auxiliary parking associated with that for large trucks and other customers. So that came through as a request, a couple months ago. And ultimately, the zone change, this group approved out in the area.
So the station itself is in the city limits of Boise?
It is, yeah. So this site here is in Ada County. The station itself is in the city of Boise.
That's why they're weighing in.
Yeah, and it's a unique situation where you have two properties adjacent to each other across area of city impact boundaries. At the time, we're kind of like, why isn't Boise just considering annexing this? Different things like that. And we reached out. They didn't want to do anything like that. They're not supposed to annex outside of their area of city impact, but they technically can if they make their request.
So it's not in the city of Boise, it's in the city of Boise area of impact?
No, not actually. So this is neither in city limits or in the area of city impact.
No, I mean the gas.
The gas it's in the city of Boise and in the area of city impact.
But the site sign is not.
The site sign is outside of both.
Okay. Well, that clears it up.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So is the sign designed in such a way where if you did want to shorten it in the future, that's easy to accomplish? This to the witness. There's,
It could be shortened. You'd have to take the entire sign down and cut the holes off and shorten it. But I mean, it would be an awful lot of work to shorten it.
Yeah, why would you want to?
Yeah,
I
why'd
don't
you
know how to
need-
answer that. Anything is possible. Don't really know how to answer that.
I didn't know if you could lower the signage part while leaving the post still up and then just cut the top of the post off with the. Yeah, anyway, you do a lot of these tall signs?
Yes, we do actually.
I was just curious, do they attract birds of prey that try to nest up there?
No, they don't. The most they usually attract is bees. Usually bees will put hives in them and that kind of thing, but usually not birds, because I don't know why, but no, it's normally, and pigeons will sit on them. A lot of times we'll put up bird begone to get pigeons not to roost on them.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, do we
Yes.
have any visuals coming and going, so we know what this looks like coming into our lovely city of Boise?
He did have that visual right there.
Other than that, I mean, that doesn't really show me much. I'd like to see the original, the one that we just looked at, that sign, right? Put where they're planning to place it and telling us what distance that is. I just don't have enough information here to tell, coming and going, what's out there, what, I don't know. I'm just having a hard time visualizing this, except I looked out the window and I looked at our new building across the street, which is gigantic, that we just built, and that's 100 feet. So I just don't feel like I have enough visuals here to really make a good call on this. I know City Boise is going to be really upset because it's right there. I didn't think it was. I thought it was further out, honestly. I'm gonna ask to table this and get more visuals of it coming and going. And
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kenyon, this is Josh Leonard on behalf of the applicant. I wanted to answer a couple of questions that you asked at the outset and maybe help you understand where this is coming from.
Sure.
The picture that you're looking at here is about 3,900 feet from the site, and the off ramp itself begins about right where that you can see the point where the last second before you can take that off ramp exactly. That's about 3,450 feet or 3,500 right in there from the site where the sign is. And I was trying to look really quickly at what the elevations were. As Kathleen mentioned a few minutes ago, when they took their truck out there with the 65-foot boom on it and flagged it, they could just see that poking up over, and you can just barely see it in the distance here, the overpass that crosses the road there. Because of after the overpass, it dips down into the flatland, and those hills are pretty substantial that cut across on either side of the interstate. So you can see where the green is standing in the distance there. That's significantly larger in both area and height to what the sign would be looking like. That's a pin or a depiction, it looks like.
Thank you for that. We've had lots of exhibits that have been photoshopped that are not accurate, and so I really hesitate to go by a document like this one, frankly. Can you tell me why you don't just put a sign on the side of the road where like the green sign is right there that just says, Mr. Gas, next exit, and put a nice sign that just tells people that at the next exit, you're going to be there?
Sure. One of the key elements of this sign is the gas price, and those green signs that are actual Idaho Transportation Department signs are just that. They're small. They don't have a changing gas amount, and they don't really bring in travelers. They typically, you see those where there are more than one service at a particular location. To give a list of them to reduce the number of signs, or where there's a limit based on the spacing. So in this, the Idaho code limits where you can put these signs. And this is one of those, based on the zoning, this is one of the places in which a sign is permitted or is allowed, but it still has to meet Idaho Transportation Board standards. And it does for both height and area of the face of the sign. I'm going a long way to answer your question here, and I apologize. But one of the reasons why they do the signs the way they do is to include that gas price amount and be able to change that, because they find that brings in customers.
Thank you.
So you're suggesting that the Idaho Transportation Department, they have regulations governing the height and the size of these kind of signs?
That's correct. They're found in IDAPA. They're found in the Idaho Administrative Procedure Act, and they're standards that are created by the Idaho Transportation Board.
And this sign meets that standard?
It does. That's correct.
Mr. Chair, do we have any documentation that's been submitted that shows that?
I don't know. Do
Chairman,
we?
Commissioner Kenyon, this was transmitted to Idaho Transportation Department. We didn't receive a comment.
We've not.
It was transmitted at the beginning, this has been here for a little while. But yeah, we've received no comment from them. This is a problem. We've also not heard that they like it, but they haven't commented on the project. So.
Well, would it be a normal procedure for the Idaho Transportation Department to say they like it, or would it be a normal procedure for you to submit the document to the proposal to them, and if it didn't meet their requirements, that's when they would comment?
Yeah, Chairman, the transmittal process we have specific contacts in each agency that receive applications from us on a daily basis. So in the event that they have a comment or a challenge or a problem, that's when we usually hear from them. We get some type of review. A lot of agencies, a no comment is an okay, whereas some agencies will say, we're fine with this, and we actually get that documentation. But, again, a no comment in this case seems to be an okay from ITD. We spoke to Connor on this one, who was the planner who actually worked on this. I'm just presenting it for him tonight. He's received no call or email or anything from ITD regarding this sign. And I'd appreciate hearing from Lytle Signs more of the IDAPA standards there. Planners don't spend a lot of time in the IDAPA standards. But yeah, again, this was transmitted. We didn't receive any comment that this was a problem as a sign, so.
And is this normally the way that the Idaho Transportation Department does business? Do they normally, if they if it doesn't meet their standards, they will notify you, and if it does meet their standards, they remain silent? Have you had?
Chairman, that's certainly the case. They're an agency that receives such a high volume of applications that we usually only hear from them if there's a problem or if they need additional information. So we don't usually get you're okay, good to go. We do get that from some agencies, but ITD doesn't generally send us that type of comment.
But ITD doesn't do that. Well, I think that's pretty valuable information for this board to consider.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
And so there were no other structures on the other side of that sign other than a single house, and they got notice, is that correct?
Chairman, Commissioners, the notice for this, being industrial, I can't recall if it's only 300 feet, but there is a industrial business park to the west here at Eisenman and, let's see if I can actually pull up the map. So here on Eisenman Road to the west, this is the future Lake Hazel roundabout that someday will go in and extend over to kind of that Cole Road area. There are industrial buildings out here right now that, just based on this, likely would have fallen within our notice radius. There's also a residence up here at the top of Blue Cloud Lane. we've got some other industrial properties over here that, I'd have to double check the radius notice, but this was noticed per standards in our code in terms of the distance that we
Mr. Chair.
require.
Yes.
So the home on Blue Cloud Lane, do we know if they were noticed or not for sure?
I would have to go confirm that that property was indeed
Noticed,
noticed.
okay.
Excuse, can I comment? They did receive a notice, when we sent out the mailings.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So the gentleman who is speaking about the ITD IDAPA rules, can you, is there any way that you can submit that or give us the IDAPA rule number, just so we have it for the record? Because we don't have
Of course.
anything in our files.
Sure. Mr. Chair and Commissioner Kenyon, I appreciate the opportunity. It's IDAPA 39, which is the chapter that governs the Idaho Transportation Department, and it's in section 3903. It's 39.03.60. And it's entitled Rules Governing Outdoor Advertising, Accident Memorials, and Other Official Signs. And I can also tell you that the Idaho Transportation Board requires a permit from Idaho Transportation Department to erect a sign within 600 feet of the right-of-way of the highway, of the interstate highway.
So you'll need to get a permit from the from ITD.
That's my understanding. That's the way this this section of IDAPA reads. Yes. And I assume that they would verify that it meets the standards of that IDAPA to issue that permit.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is that in our document here, that they're going to need to get ITD board approval?
Chairman, Commissioner Kenyon, no, we don't. We did not include that as a condition, that they have to go get another agency approval, but I certainly could add that as a condition if that's something
Yeah,
the board would like to do.
I think that'd be appropriate.
Do we, this is a question for our council, can we, how do we put what he has just cited as IDAPA rules 39, section 39-03-60, and submit that as part of our record? Can you just send that in tomorrow, or how do we include that as a record?
You probably want to, if that's where you're going, if you want to close the public testimony, but leave the record open to get the IDAPA rules in front of you so you can look at them, you could then table this for a certain amount of time to get those rules in and look at it, and then come back and make your decision on this after you look at the rules. Otherwise, I don't see a point in having the rules as part of the record if you're not going to consider them as
Yeah.
your decision making.
So we could table this to January 25th probably and have them in by then and reviewed by then.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we certainly could.
Okay.
You'd probably want.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Kenyon, I'm texting back and forth with Lytle Signs. We're in different locations, and they advised that an Idaho Transportation Department approval was submitted with the application.
Chairman, if we'd like to recess for a moment for me to double check the packet, I'd be happy to do that. I don't have, again, don't have that intimate knowledge of that specific detail, but I'm happy to go jump into that packet if we want to do that.
Yeah, why don't we do
And
that?
Chairman,
Yes.
Chairman, I apologize for putting Mr. Letson in this position. I know this is Connor's application and Connor's away, so Leon's filling in.
Okay.
No, that's fine. If we can pause, Mr. Chair, just take
We
a
can pause for a few minutes.
5-minute
if you'd like.
recess or whatever. Yep, so everybody hang tight.
Hold on.
We have to go off the.
And Leon, I'll email that section to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, sounds good, Josh.
You're back on the record.
We're on the record, and we had previously under consideration application number 202-103-168 VSN Lytle Signs Incorporated. Variance. We'll continue with the public hearing.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It sounds like we've been joined by another member of the Lytle Sign Team, Robert Reeder, who might be able to provide some additional details about the ITD permit and the process.
Okay.
Maybe once, after we hear that, we can figure out what our next course of action
Sure.
is. Yeah.
Okay. Hello?
This is Robert Reeder. Yes, this is Robert Reeder with Lytle Signs. I believe that we got a letter from ITD when we filed for a building permit. This was a while ago, and if I don't have it, I am positive I can get it because they told us that it had to be out of the right of way off the on-ramp, and that was the only requirement they made from us.
Okay.
So, Chairman, Commissioners, as an option, again, tabling to allow for the inclusion of that additional information is certainly an option. We could also provide a condition stating that the prior to issuance of building permit, that approval from ITD be included or submitted to Ada County. Those are kind of two ways forward there.
Okay. So what's staff's recommendation?
Well, I'm always in favor of allowing someone to comply with conditions of approval. So if we wanted to put a condition of approval stating prior to issuance of a building permit or the sign permit that be provided to Ada County to allow the director to verify, I think that's a good move.
No later than a certain date.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, I think this approval is good for 2 years. So they have 2 years to do that, I guess, if they want to wait that long. Sounds like they've got a facility they want to get a sign up for right away, though.
But I meant submit it to us no later than.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Kennedy, typically they'll be inspired, if they want to get that building permit for the sign, the condition could read, prior to issuance of a building permit, submit evidence of ITD approval, something to that effect, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to continue to take some testimony, if you're ready to close the.
We're ready to close the public hearing unless we have other testimony that needs to be
We're
brought
done.
out.
Is the
I
applicant?
do have one last call-in user on their phone. I don't know if they're just listening, but they can speak now if they would like to testify.
Was it the applicant? Or a party of the applicants?
It may be.
'Cause
Well,
if
we
you-
don't know. It could be the very person we were just talking to.
No, it wasn't them. It's
Okay.
someone who hasn't spoken yet, but I don't have a name.
Okay, well, if
Does
they
not
don't want
sound
to,
like
if they don't want to say anything, they need to say something now, or we're
Ask them
gonna,
to speak
or we're
up.
gonna close the public hearing. Okay? Hearing nothing?
Chairman, back, just really quickly, this is Josh Leonard again for Lytle Signs. In crafting a condition of approval, do you mind, instead of it just being a flat permit, a permit or approval, whichever is required by ITD?
Sure.
Just because I'm reading through this and not certain that it's a permit, I may just be a letter of approval.
I think that would be fine, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. We will close the public hearing on this application. What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, Mr. Chair, I don't necessarily have a problem with the additional condition of approval. I think this is pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm looking at the picture, and then the sign is kind of in a barren desert. It doesn't seem to infringe on any other structure or building. I can pretty much use my imagination. I've seen a lot of tall gas signs driving across Idaho, so it's fairly straightforward for me.
Well, and particularly with, if it meets the IDAPA requirements of the ITD is I think what we need to look at and take that into consideration. Any other comments before we ask for a motion? No, I'd accept the motion right now.
Well, Mr. Chair, I would move. So we are looking at approving this with one additional condition. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I would move to approve application number 202-103-168-V-SN, Lytle Signs Incorporated, with the additional condition that they submit their permit or approval from the Idaho Transportation Department prior to
Permit being issued.
prior to a permit being issued. And that would be based on the conclusions of law contained in the staff report and the testimony heard tonight.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'm going to let you second this one.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, just for further discussion, you guys are probably going to vote this through tonight, but I still feel like I don't have good visuals, not only on this one, but some of the others that we have. And I don't like photoshopped. Just for the record, I do not even accept kind of photoshopped from my perspective, because we've seen so many of those that are not accurate.
Well, and
And so,
I
like
agree,
I said-
I agree with that.
Yeah, like I said before, I would have rather have actually seen some really good shots from all angles of this that we didn't get here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just abstain. How's that? I don't want Boise City mad at me.
Well, in that case.
I can certainly concur that I'd prefer more pictures, more the better in all cases.
Well, and photoshopped, you don't know exactly. I mean, it looked kind of weird to me to see a Photoshop thing up there. Expect us to take that as that's what the visual's going to be, because it wasn't even close to what the actual sign is going to be. But I think with the ITD issuing their approval, and they didn't object, I can go ahead and support this. So I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And we have one abstention. Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, actually, what we would have wanted to probably table this for revised, to put that condition of approval in for the ITD, so kind of go backwards a second, and the motion is to table it to January 25th, right, for staff to add in the condition of approval.
Yeah, happy to do that. Yes.
Okay.
Do we have to do that? Why can't
Do we have to do that? We were under the impression that we could just go ahead and.
I know, Mr. Chairman, in the past, we have added a condition with the motion and.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not revised
Okay.
findings. Yeah,
Never
it's
mind.
done.
Have you signed
But
tomorrow,
done.
I guess, once we get
Yep,
that?
I'll
Or
be
tonight,
fine.
it'll still be tonight, because the conditions are attached. Okay. Gotcha. Let's process.
Okay. Moving along. We have next up for consideration, application number 202-103057-VAC, Toby Fulkerson. I'll open the public hearing. We'll get a staff report.
Yeah, Chairman Commissioners, this item has been requested to be tabled due to some last-minute request from a neighboring property owner to the subject property that is opposed to the vacation. So I believe they're tabling this to our February hearing to allow them to get some more info from that property owner as well as Ada County Highway District.
I'll accept the motion.
I don't have the project number in front of me. Okay, I'll make the motion to go ahead and table project number 202-103057-VAC, Fulkerson, Toby, and we don't have a date, just till
It'll be the February
9.
Yeah, February 9th.
February 9th,
Hearing, thank you.
2022. Okay. There you go.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there any other business to be brought before us? Hearing none, we're adjourned. Everybody,